And we're live. What's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Kenny here today, and we'll be trying to we'll be debunking the false narratives of racial justice. So what made me bring up this video today is that I've been hearing a lot of talks about how like racial equality is when people of all races and ethnicity are treated equally. And I believe we have reached that point already. I just think what a lot of people are looking for right now is an equality of outcome, and I think that's not possible in in the human species. It goes against human nature. Like, right, everyone's a unique individual, and these unique individuals will make certain choices, and based on those certain choices, we'll receive certain outcomes. A primary example of what I'll say is that if one individual chooses to spend, let's say, 8 hours studying for a math test, and one person chooses to use his 8 hours to practice for his sport, when it comes time to PE, when we're doing physical education, who's more likely to outperform the other in the physical education? The kid that chose to spend 8 hours working out, doing his sport, he's going to have a better outcome than the kid who chose to spend his 8 hours studying for a math test. But now, if we go into the classroom and the teacher says, surprise, pop quiz, here's a math test, which kid will perform better in the math test? The one who spent 8 hours studying for math, right? So these outcomes created disparities. One kid excelled in sports, but didn't excel in the classroom, and one kid excelled in the classroom but doesn't exceed in sports. Why is that? Hello, Jonathan Fields. How are you? Hope you're doing well. So my question is, who is more likely to be what? Like, if I ask you, who is the race of the kid of the one that performed well in PE, if you said black, you'll be right most of the time. Because look at the NBA. NBA is 74% black, but no one complains about racial inequality about the NBA. No one cares about that, right? And this is where we get into blacks in tech, women in tech, right? These ideas that, we need to lower the standards to allow other people to get into it. And it kind of goes into my video that I did on Wednesday about systematic racism. So this is kind of maybe reinforcing that idea, right? And as usual, doing some housekeeping. If you want to support me, you can support me on Locals. I don't post any content there, but if I can get 1,000 members in my Locals, then I'll start paying more attention and try to create some exclusive content for Locals. But I digress. For the stream, I'm using mostly a lot of findings that I found in When Race Trumps Merit from Heather McDonald, which is a good book. It talks about this whole idea of how the pursuit of equality and racial how the pursuit of equity sacrifices excellence, which is, I agree with that. And I think this is what's going on with our culture today, is that we're creating false narratives surrounding these ideas simply because people choose to make different decisions. And now, because these people just choose to make these different decisions, and then they're complaining about the outcomes of their decisions, they want to lay the blame on the greater society instead of their own internal decision makings. And I think this is the core root of all of this race narrative. I believe a lot of people are using race as an alibi for a lot of the bad behavior and the negative outcomes that the black community experience. That's just my personal beliefs, and this is my case on why I believe it's a false narrative that a lot of racial justice advocates fight on. So let's get into racial justice. Let's define it, right? According to the National Education Association, which is, JOY, right? The systematic fair treatment of people of all race resulting in equitable outcomes and opportunity for all. Now, one part I agree with, the other part I disagree with. What I agree with, that everyone should have a fair shot. Everyone should try out, but equal outcome, not everyone should make the team, right? It's a concept that I grew up playing basketball in high school. The coach says, hey, y'all got a shot to make it, but not all of y'all gonna make the team. That's reality. Look, like let's get it to it. This is reality. No, nothing's changing that. To say that, hey, we're going to try to create an equitable system where we get representation throughout all fields based on the society at large it's not up to top-down bureaucrats to decide that. It's mainly up to the people in those communities to prepare their children to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. Right? You see a lot of these med school, Harvard, Yale, medical schools, trying to create quota systems for admissions of more black and Hispanic medical students. But what's going on? There's an academic skill gap. I can agree, but what's causing that academic skill gap is where I'll disagree with a lot of these people who push for racial equality, right? Because I say, hey, if the black parents or the Hispanic parents help their kids assimilate, help their kids prepare their kids for academic success by, reading to them at an early age, by preparing them how to read, getting them to do their homework at a greater capacity. Because all I have to do is compare them to the Asians, who is the racial group that's performing the best academically, right? Because if you look at medical school, Asians are overrepresented and white people are represented. But white people make the majority of the country. They're like, 64% of the country. So they got great odds just based on their sheer numbers to be the majority in medical school. But what about Asians, though? Asians are performing very well, overrepresented they have disproportional outcomes when it comes to medical school. No one complains about that. Why? Why no one's asking that question? How is a minority group being overrepresented in medical school, but the other two minority groups aren't? There's an academic skill gap. Just like if you ask about sports, hey, how come Asians are not represented in NBA? Well, they don't have the sports skills to make it in the NBA at a representative number, right? But it seems like black people, they seem to understand, oh, yeah, we're just that good at basketball, right? If you look at the black people's kind of how they socialize and the culture surrounding the black community, you see that a lot of black people, they push their kids to start sports early. Some 3 years old. Hell, when they're coming out the crib, they already got a basketball in their hand, already getting familiar with the ball. Those behavior patterns set people up for success, right? Because a lot of people say that it was time in the market beats time in the market. It applies to skill acquisition as well. If I taught my kid how to play basketball and he already knows how to dribble the ball by the age of 4, by the time he actually starts playing elementary school, you don't think that's going to be a big advantage? There's a book from Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, and how he talks about to become an expert at your field, you need 10,000 hours at it. So imagine if me, as a parent, I decide I have two choices. Can I give my kid 10,000 hours, give my kids a head start in getting 10,000 hours in academics or athletics? My theory is black people set their kids up for athletic success, but not for academic success. Asians pick academic success over athletic success. You heard of the Tiger Moms? Bro, my kid right now, at 2 years old, I'm already starting. Me and my wife are already starting to try to teach him how to write. He already knows his vocabulary. Like, he's speaking pretty well for a 2-year-old. I mean, now he's 3 for a 3-year-old, right? But we're going to continue investing in his education. That's going to give him an academic advantage. My son's going to have a higher academic skill than the average black kid growing up in 2023. And this is the argument I'm trying to make. And I'm trying to showcase using my own family, using my own behavior, using my own decision making as the test. I'm literally doing an experiment with my own kid. Okay, let's see if it's based on race or it's based on behavior. I'm changing my behavior. I'm doing things that the average black American parent don't do. Black women always claiming, oh, we're the most educated woman in America, but their kids, aka their black boys, don't read at a high enough level. And I did a live stream. I think I did the hard facts about racism. I forgot what the video was. I did a live stream a couple weeks ago with Larry Elder on this topic as well, about racial disparities, about the history of black history, whatever. And I made the claim, and it seems to be backing up, that most black 12th graders, only 1% of them are advanced readers, are considered advanced readers. Why is that? And I gave some cases. Hey, in the black community, you don't really introduce reading to your kid. I use my own anecdotal evidence. Hey, my mom taught me how to read at 6th grade. By the time I went to the 1st grade, I was reading on a 3rd grade level. You don't think that's a big advantage for knowledge acquisition? You don't think that'll set me up for success? And this is the problem that a lot of the black community don't want to recognize, because they don't want that mirror in their face. They just want to blame something else, aka they want an alibi, right? They want the alibi, because at the end of the day, there's nothing sweeter than an alibi. An alibi, you don't have to work for an alibi. All you have to do is blame all your problems, all your negative outcomes on that alibi, and you're all set to go. And that's what it seemed like the black community fell into. They want that. So instead of digging deeper, instead of doing the hard choices and making the hard choices of, hey, we got to correct our behavior, we got to correct our culture to push our kids down a more productive path where they can be more competitive academically. No, we want the academic system to lower its standards so that way we could stay the same without any change. Because the black community seem to want to be comfortable in their current situation without having to do any changes themselves. So this is a big problem what I see in the black community, and regardless if they want to acknowledge it or not, this is the reality. The reality is a lot of the disproportional outcomes that's happening is due to your disproportional behaviors and decision makings, and you're gonna see a lot of that about this in the next part. So I'm gonna go into this article that I found. This was from one of the references for this book when race trumps merit, and she mentioned this stat about the profiles of people who commit hate crimes. Guess what? Guess who they are? They're not black. I mean, they are black. Sorry, but I have. Let's see if I could pull it up. I don't think you guys can see it, but it doesn't matter. So this is the stat I'm referencing verbatim from a stat from 2008 from the source is called the Bureau of Justice Statistics National Crime Victimization Surveys 2008. Okay, 69% of white people were attacked by white people. Fair, right? Everyone who, if you know anything stats about intra-racial crime, the people of the crime group do the biggest crime against each other. So when we talk about the black community's crime rates, we know that, hey, most of the black people committing the crimes are victimizing black people. No one want to talk about that disproportional outcome. Oh, all they want to care about is seem like the criminals. I don't understand that logic. Why you care more about the people breaking the laws than the victims of those people? This is my problem with the black community and black culture that glamorizes criminals. Many of you hold the criminals accountable. Now you want us to feel sorry for them when they were trying to victimize another likely black person. But hey, this is the race of offenders who attack white people, right? 17% of the black crimes committed. 17% of crimes committed against white people in 2008 were done by black people. Right now, the next person is Hispanic. 11% crime against white people and 2.5% against Asians. Asians does against white people. So Asians statistically commit less crime than any other racial group in America, right? And this is based on percentages, not absolute numbers. If I do absolute numbers, that's of course because obviously white people are the biggest population in the country. So of course they're gonna, in absolute numbers, they're gonna commit more crime. But when we go by racial percentage, this is where you get the inconvenient truth that black people, if you just look at the numbers, in 2018, black people, 79% of crimes was done by another black person. And then look at the white, and then the white numbers. And sorry guys, I'm reading this off of my personal computer, so my screen capture couldn't capture this, so I'm reading it for verbatim. But I'm telling you the source of this information. This is coming also from the Bureau of Justice Statistics and National Crime Victimization Surveys 2018. 79.1% of blacks were attacked by blacks. Only 11% of blacks were attacked by whites. Did you hear that? When we go to white people being attacked by another person of another race, it was 17% black, right? Which is the largest percentage of a non-white person attacking a white person. If you look at when blacks get attacked by people of the opposite race, whites attack them 11% of the time. That means black people attack white people more than white people attack black people. This is the inconvenient truth about hate crimes, because black people are the biggest perpetrators of hate crimes. Sorry, not sorry. This is the truth. These are the facts. These are evidence. If you don't believe me, look at the Bureau of Statistics from 2018. I'm referencing from 2018. 2021 is, to me, those numbers are not going to change much. So the reason I bring that stat up, or I made that little monologue, is that I want to a profile by racial group. Now, this is in New York, okay? And as you know, New York touts is diversity, right? My diversity, right? As mentioned before, the New York City diversity can lead to a proportionally granting interactions between individuals of different racial, ethnical, religious, and other groups. which can sometimes reach the point of hate crimes, right? Popular media coverage tend to focus on specific kinds of offenses, but a closer look at the data shows that the inter-crime victimization is more complicated, right? We get this is the false narrative I'm going to rail against in this live stream, is that you get this false narrative that it's only white people that are doing hate crimes towards everyone else. White people are the biggest perpetrator of anti-Semitism, anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-black, anti-Hispanic, anti-white. Bruh, they make it seem out to be that white people are the biggest terrorist threat in the whole United States of America. But when the reality is, which I just spoke to you just now, black people are more likely to commit hate crimes compared to every other place. Because at the end of the day, black people only make 13% of the population, but they're committing almost 50% of the crimes. Homicides, sorry. Right? And like what, only 33, like about 33% of crimes, if I generalize the crimes. That's insane for a population that's only 13% of the population. But at the same time, they're not the biggest committers of hate crimes. I don't understand that. Right? Because in this racial justice, racial equality world we live in, a hate crime is merely if you commit an offense of a person from another race. It doesn't matter if, hey, the reason I'm robbing this Asian man is because I know he has a Ferrari and I want his Ferrari. But the fact that I'm black and he's Asian, the liberals want to categorize that as a hate crime instead of looking at it as, oh, this wasn't racially motivated. It's just this man wanted to rob from this man. But no, in the mainstream media, liberal media, if a white man do anything to a black man, hate crime instantly. It didn't matter what was going on. It could have been the black man disrespected the white man and the white man resorted to assault. No, they're going to be like, no, it has to be racial. It was racist. If that dude was a white man making fun of him, he wouldn't have fought him. Right? They want to play this narrative because they just want to be believed on their race. This is what I'm talking about. Black community seems to be like people who push this stuff. They want their race to become an alibi, right? When they say, "Oh, a black man said it, it must be true." That's the kind of societal conformity that it seems like a lot of these race hustlers want in our society. That if we see a crime, we don't look at the crime for its context, its nuances, No, it's just simply, hey, look at the optics. White man attack black man, hate crime. White man attack gay man, hate crime. Right? So if we go by that standard, black people commit the most hate crimes out of all groups of people, just based on the percentages of crime that happens in America. Right? Here's another stat from this is from the Crime Bureau. Sorry, that in 2018. The total amount of hate crimes or like crimes committed against certain groups of people in that year was about a million offenses towards the victims, right? When which is the offending race, when black commit crimes against white people, it was 400,000 crimes committed against white victims. Black offenders committed 346,000 crimes against black victims. That means a black criminal in 1 year created more offenses against a white victim than a black victim. That means black perpetrators tend to target white people. Right? That's not a problem. I think there's a stat that said 88% of interracial crime are committed by black people. A black on white, sorry. Because look at this. With a white offender, 1.7 million crimes was done against another white person. Only 89,000 offenses was done by a white criminal to a black victim. Craziness. Remember the black number? The black number was, hey, black criminal attack white victim, 400,000. That's the absolute number. Only white criminals victimizes black people, 89,000. If you combine the two numbers, you'll see how black perpetrators are responsible for 85% on interracial crimes. That means based on the numbers, they're supposed to be the biggest proponents of hate crime. This is why the stats here says it's more complicated than how the mainstream media wants you to view the world. Because they want you to have a false assumption. They want you to have reactionary thinking and be like, oh, I'm supposed to react just like this is how they program me to react. This is the problem. Right? Jonathan Fields says, it's crazy how people will not believe in truth and facts. I agree with you. All you're saying here. I appreciate that, Jonathan Fields. But the reality is people want a narrative that conveniently leave them off the hook or justify their views of other people. Right? A lot of black people are walking around thinking that they're justified in hating a white person just simply because they're white. And if you give them information that confirms that bias, they'll just agree with it. They're more susceptible to agree with it. If I told you, the greatest threat to a black man is a white man, and you already felt this way, aka racist towards white people, you'll just believe it. You say, yeah, that's true. But then my black butt come out and say, nah, you're more likely to victimize him than he is to victimize you because you're a black man. Oh, you're being racist, Kenny. Oh, you're being traitorish. No, it's the facts. Black people, on average, the black community, right? Because I'm generalizing, tend to commit more crime than the white community. Just look at the percentage. You overrepresented in prisons. Why? Because you commit more crimes. You don't ask yourself that question. Hey, why are we overrepresented in the NBA? Black people don't ask themselves that question. But when it comes to jail time, when it comes to being in prison, they want to act victim and say, hey, this shouldn't be the case. No, you're in the NBA because you got your decisions create those outcomes, black community. Just like your actions create the outcomes for why you're overrepresented in jail, in crime statistics, in police interactions. It's not police brutality is the reason why you interact with the police a lot. It's because you break the law a lot, and therefore you invite more police intervention. But I digress, man. I want to kind of get into the data and really have you guys have some visuals here. So this is hate crimes offended by race of offenders and type of crime. Okay. So limited information is available about hate crime offenders simply because many hate crimes do not result in arrest. But the data reported by the NYPD to the FBI provides information on offender rates among the offenses cleared by arrest, although not Hispanic ethnicity. So that means even if this designated as white, they don't consider the ethnicity of the white person because aka white Hispanics are also counted as white in this statistic. So some of the numbers may be overemphasized for the white community because it's also including white Hispanics. And white Hispanics commit, I think they're the second group that commits the most crimes most hate crimes against other people. My numbers are shaky on that one, but they're also included amongst whites. So in certain circumstances, the data may not make sense based on what they're visualizing here. Hate crime arrests can include data about race and sex. As far as the latter goes, hate crime offenders are overwhelmingly male, who commits more crime in the black community? Black men. Okay. Tracking the patterns of men for more likely to be more likely to be committed. Sorry guys, I'm going too fast. Tracking the patterns of men being more likely to commit crimes in general, which is true, but no one says, "Oh, that's sexist." No one complains about that. No one creates false narratives about how we need sexist judgment or something. Like, you can make the argument like, end of the day, facts matter, truth matters, and just say the reality is the reality. Hey, men commit more crimes in general than women. Men are responsible for overwhelmingly a disproportional amount of crime. You don't hear women here crying. You don't hear men crying about that. But when you put that same logic, you remove the men and you put black. Oh, it's racist. But you don't say this is sexist. You don't say this stat line that I just said sexist. No, none of the race hustlers, none of them are gonna come over here and cry about this because they're gonna say, yeah, that's facts. And then when you look at the hate crimes produced by the victims, right? Whites. Well, remember, whites. You can put some percentage of this. What, maybe 12% of this because that's the Hispanics population numbers. 12% of this number is Hispanic as well. They only counting white Hispanics and white people. So the numbers are overflated. But look who's right next to them. Right? Look at Asians. 16%. Imagine this. Even with this category that has both white Hispanics and white Americans, 16% of the time, the black community by itself, 26% of the time. Stop Asian hate. Stop Asian hate. When they talk about Asian hate, they don't like to refer to who's the biggest offender of Asian hate. Now, do they? Oh, we about to get even crazier. Look at gay men. Now look at Catholics. Actually, look at this. White people are more likely to attack a Catholic. Black people are still there. Craziness, right? Out of the instances of and this, I think this is about like what, 650. They took data from 650 confirmed. I forgot where it was at. 650 confirmed crimes. So this is why you got all these numbers. But look at who's overwhelmingly gay men. Gay men are the biggest attacker. They get attacked the most for hate crime in the gay community, not lesbians. Because this is where these narratives keep coming from. Women will walk around, like, let's say lesbians will walk around and think, oh, I'm gonna be a victim of hate crime, when that's not the case, because women don't commit crimes against each other like that. Men commit all the crimes. And the biggest target of crime is men. Men are more likely to die of violent crime than women are. Right? Now, women are susceptible to being criminalized in other ways. It rhymes with grape. But other than that, like death, oh no, that's a male problem. Death from crime is usually a male problem. When you look at blacks, 195 instances. 100 instances. Craziness. Look at the numbers. Look, white, 100, black, 195. Black community doing that. But when you hear anti-gay hate crimes, what they say? What's the narrative? What's the narrative? Oh, it's white people. Okay, what's your evidence for that? I don't have any evidence. You're supposed to assume that because they're white supremacists. Okay, bro. Look at this against Hispanic. Obviously, Hispanics, white, 19, blacks, 19. Look at the Muslims. They white, but, also the Hispanics are in there skewing the numbers. But, hey, white, Islamic phobia, right, whatever. Look at the Jewish community. 121 white, 143, who's it? Black. Can we keep going? Can we keep going? Like, who's the real victim here? Like when you ask yourself what the mainstream media is pushing, is the mainstream media pushing truth, or is the mainstream media pushing propaganda? And then when they listen to me, they say, "Oh, Kenny, you're pushing propaganda." I say, "Okay, how I'm pushing propaganda when I'm referring to crime data using the crime data explorer, hate crimes reported by the NYPD." So in the most diverse community, the most diverse state in the union, according to this data anyway, New York, where all these racial groups, these different religions, these different walks of life, these different ideologies all congregate together. They're more likely to interact compared to any other state in the union. Black people are the biggest perpetrators of so-called hate crime. And this is based on the liberal definition of hate crime. If it was me, what I designate as hate crime is if race was the primary motive of the attack. That means there was no other reason to attack you other than you were something else. Oh, you're a Catholic, that's why I attacked you. Oh, you're a white person, that's why I attacked you. Oh, you're a black person, that's why I attacked you. No, the liberals don't go with that logic. The liberals go with the just merely on optics, it's a hate crime. Oh, you're a white criminal and you victimize a black victim, it was a hate crime. And the white criminal can be like, yo, I saw this black woman, she was driving a Bugatti. I wanted the Bugatti, and I tried to steal her Bugatti. That's my motive. I wanted the Bugatti. No. You hated her because she was a black woman. So we're going to charge you with a hate crime. What? And this is what I'm talking about. Like, they make race number one. They sit here and chastise you saying, oh, conservatives think about race first. No, we don't. We think about race last in most cases. It's you, liberal, who think about race first. Because we sit here and say, okay, we don't make any preconceived assumptions about crime. Okay, this criminal happened to be white. This victim happened to be black. What was reasoning for the attack? Right? We're not saying no, like it's craziness, but liberals just purely on the appearances of the crime. Oh, white man attacked black man, hate crime. But it is the other way around. You don't make that same assumption. Racism, prejudice, off rip. That's prejudice off rip. Because at the end of the day, I'm for equal treatment, equal opportunity. If you want to put the opportunity that a white man, just merely on his race, merely to the fact that he victimized someone of another race, that is a hate crime, then that standard should be applied to all races equally. Or that you can't sit here and preach that you're about equality. Look at lesbian females. 38. Bigger share of the crime than what? White people. Look at transgender. And then here's the funny part, which I said, remember, black people are responsible for, between black and white, black perpetrators are responsible for 85% of the crimes against white people, interracial crimes between white and black. 72 compared to 4. But white supremacy. White supremacy, Kenny. You're supposed to be scared of the white man. The white man don't like you. He'll attack you. I'm more likely to die at the hands of another black person than the police. Those are facts. Those are facts. So I'm on schedule today, guys. So 30 minutes, I was just going to give my monologue. So now we're going to go into the video with Larry Elder. He'll be talking with a data scientist. I forgot the data scientist's name. Hopefully, they'll say his name in the video. So let's get into the video. Hopefully, no buffering happens. But if not, you guys just listen to my voice. So no big deal. So yeah, so it's buffering. So data science destroys racist police narrative with real data with Larry Elder. Let's get into the video.
Guest is a data scientist formerly with Thomson Reuters. She's also an economist and a lawyer. If I'm not mistaken, he went to Harvard. I believe Harvard is still accredited. I'll pause while the laughter dies down. Please welcome back to the program, Zach Kriegman. Zach, stirring up trouble again. Zach, you already got canned from Thomson Reuters for casting doubt on the validity of Black Lives Matter. You did this long paper, and you showed because of the influence of Black Lives Matter, that cops are pulling back. And you documented how many so-called excess deaths were taking place in cities all around the country. And most of these excess deaths were the very black and brown people that Black Lives Matter claimed that they care about, all because of the lie that they've been pushing that the police are engaging in systemic racism against black people. You did the paper, you got canned. I thought maybe you'd lay low for a little while, lick your wounds, but not Zach Kriegman. Now you come back with another paper talking about a couple of newspaper articles that supposedly were competing against each other when in fact they weren't. But I want to talk first of all about the truth. The truth about black motorists being pulled over more than white motorists. Is it true?
So before he goes into that long, his diatribe, because obviously I went a minute without pausing it. Some of the interesting thing about this is that this guy, Zach Kriegman, he's a data analyst. He got fired from his job for exposing the truth. Right? And it made me remember some quote I remember hearing a long time ago that no one silenced you for telling lies, but people do silence you for telling the truth. And I think this is a big problem in our culture, especially with these people who want to push false narratives. This is why I feel so confident about making this video, because it's based on nothing but fluff. No facts, nothing to back it up. Because when you look at the data, my stance is data does not prove a narrative. Data only proves a results. That's it. That's all data does. So this guy comes out, hey, look at the results. Black people are more likely to be pulled over by the cops. Why? Well, here's one theory. What sounds more probable? He was driving while black, or stats show that black people, right, who has the disproportionately represented in crime, remember? Right? And there's also another insight from police reports where police have a system due to their years of experience. They know that during traffic stops, criminals tend to not fulfill the required registration, maintenance of their car, right? Because if you're willing to break the law, you're willing to break other laws too. That's the assumption, and that assumption has been, like, based on the stats, it's been proven more right than wrong. So when they do these traffic stops, oh, you didn't do your vehicle registration number, your license expired. There's chances are there's high probability that person's a criminal and he's wanted for other crimes as well. And if he's not wanted for other crimes, it's fine. You're like, oh yeah, here you go. You go, be on your way. Here's a warning. Go on your way to handle the vehicle registration. Bye-bye. Good day, sir. Right? That's called proactive policing. But the fact Black Lives Matter happened, a lot of people didn't like that. Now they're crying. Right? Anyway, back to why black people get pulled over more than other groups of people is that black people are more likely to speed compared to other groups of people. I forgot where I got that stat from, but they say on average, black people drive at a higher miles per hour than other groups of people, right? And if you're speeding, if you're more likely to speed, you're gonna what? Get pulled over more often. So you're not driving while black. When you drive while you black, you forget to mention that you were speeding and you were going 25 miles over the speed limit. They forget to mention that part. This is another example of what I'm talking about by using their race as an alibi. You're speeding through the neighborhood and you get pulled over and you say, oh, you pulled me over because I'm black. I was driving while black. That's how I got pulled over. No, you going 75 out of 50. But you want to get mad at the police. End of the day, the police react to whatever's going on. If the police did not see that you were breaking something, they want to stop you. But a lot of black people don't want to admit that because they don't want accountability. They don't want responsibility. All right. Jonathan Field says, I'm just asking that because I have talked with people who said that black people do these acts of violence because they want to gain attention to the struggle of black people. Well, it's a dumb thing to do as a community. That, to me, if you're tension, the kind of attention you get dictates like the image of your people, right? And this is one thing I grew up with that my parents instilled on me, that they say, hey, you represent the family, so make sure when you're out in public, you represent the family well. The black community don't have this kind of culture. The black community have this culture of I'm me. I'm out for myself. They have almost no community. The only time they come together as a community is when they all stand to gain from something, aka reparations. Oh, we all can get money just because we're black. Okay, let's act like we're the biggest victims of white supremacy and white oppression. This is where in reality, this is what I really feel. A lot of this racism, racial disparities, racial inequality, this is the real motive of it. And that's just my theory. This is my assumption, is that the real motive of it is just to, when you get into a car accident, people like to fake an injury because they know they'll get more money if they fake an injury. This is what the black people are doing. They're doing this to, oh my God, look at all this negative outcome is because I'm black. And the only way you could agree with some of this racial justice stuff is if you believe that black people are perfect and good, and black people can't do no wrong, and the only reason they're at the bottom is because a system is actively out to restrict their mobility in the world, and not due to their own personal decision making. But it's attention seeking. How you would recommend that they bring attention to the black community? What would you do to bring attention to the black community? Oh, I get it. Hi, Tech Boy, Tech News and Reviews. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm sitting here talking to the chat. I'm supposed to be doing a video. This is crazy. But some of the attention that I don't think it's attention. I just think it's just excuse making, because the black community gets attention for all the wrong things, right? You commit a lot of crime, and then when they get the repercussions of committing these crimes, they want to come out and defend criminals. Like it's just getting attention for all the wrong stuff. And then when they get blowback, they want to rely on the fact that they're black, and you're being mean to them because they happen to be black. And then they pull racism, right? And Shelby Steele, which is I have to do a video with him. I have to do a video on his content and his insights. Shelby Steele talks about how white guilt is black power. And this is some of the reasons why I think the black community as a whole is playing this racial inequality game, because I think this is a game, right? I think this is a hustle. Like, race hustlers for a reason. This is a hustle. This is the hustle to keep racism alive, because they found out they can use racism as a justification to get entitlements like reparations, like welfare, government support, free money. They just see it as we can hustle these white people for free money, and they buying our sob story. They buying that we are oppressed because of our skin color. So let's try to get as much money out of them as possible. It's a form of emotional extortion. That's just my thoughts as a black conservative, But let's get back into the video.
True, and B, if it is true, is it because of racism?
Yes, it's absolutely true. Black motorists are pulled over more often than white motorists, but the evidence seems very clear at this point that, at least in Massachusetts, it's not due to bias or discrimination. So there was a big study out of Massachusetts, like public safety office of some kind, did this big study where they looked at, all the arrest records, and they used this clever design where they look at the same period of time at different parts of the year. So you have similar drivers at different parts of the year, sometimes in darkness, sometimes in light. In dark, the police officers can basically never make out the race of the driver. And during the daytime, sometimes they can. So this is a test to see whether or not bias could be playing any role. And what they discovered was that during the daytime, when police may be able to make out the race of the driver, white drivers were stopped more often, black drivers were stopped less often than at nighttime, when police could not make out the race.
So are you saying...
so this is very compelling evidence.
So you're saying, are the police racist against white people?
This is very... Well, I think they're scared of pulling over black drivers, would be my guess. I mean, I don't really know.
And this is another problem too, that it seems like the black community is comfortable and satisfied as being treated like the retarded kids in the room. You know how you have different expectations for someone who's retarded. You're like, yo, they don't know what they're doing. They're throwing stuff at the wall. They're still trying to make the stuff stick on the wall. Just leave them alone. And this is how society is slowly treating black people as a whole. And then black people want to come up and complain and say, oh, they're treating us differently. Well, you don't want to be a part of the society. You want to be exclusive. You want to talk about Black Lives Matter. And then when someone said all lives matter, you want to go attack them. Right? You said Black Lives Matter is not about just black people. We just want to bring special attention to how black people lose their lives. And it seems like society don't care about them. Okay. Then Candace Owens and Kanye West says white lives matter. And then y'all say it's a grift. It's you're validating white lives over other people's lives. And then I go, wait, hold on. All they did was switch the race. You said Black Lives Matter. You said it wasn't just only about black people. People believed you. Then when Candace and Kanye go over here and say white lives matter, you're gonna say it's a grift. You're gonna say it's racial supremacy, that they're trying to elevate the white lives over everyone else's lives. And I'm like, wait, couldn't I accuse you, Black Lives Matter, of saying and doing the same thing? Can I not claim that Black Lives Matter was a grift? And it sure was a grift, because as you can see, the person who was in charge of, I forgot her name already. She got millions of dollars from donations. She making penthouses. She got mansions in California. Hustling y'all white guilt, hustling people's sympathy for black lives. And she used it to enrich herself and her family and her peoples. But I don't see no videos of these black progressives, these black liberals coming out and calling Black Lives Matter a grift. But Candace and Kanye just says, hey, white lives matter. It's a grift. Oh, this is nothing but a grift. Oh, what about Black Lives Matter? We got proof that they misuse funds. We got proof that the people in charge of that organization use it to enrich themselves and their family and their friends. No one out here calling it a grift. See, this is my problem with black people. They want to be able to get money just because of their skin color, right? Imagine if someone told you, hey, you can get a lot of money just the fact that of your skin color. What sounds more tempting? Getting money because of your skin color, or getting money off of your accomplishments and abilities? The skin color every time. Because if you go with accomplishments and abilities, you have to work on that every day. You have to put in time to acquire the ability so you can get the achievement. And then the achievement comes due every day. Like, you have to show up every day. You can't stop. You always have to be working towards the achievement, or else you will lose that achievement. Well, with a racial alibi, you don't have to work for that. You can just sit there, cry, and be like, look, I'm a black man. That's why everything bad happened to me, and just rake in the dough. And this is the problem that we have in our community, is that the community wants to justify all its bad behavior, all its negative attributes, negative outcomes on its race, and make it someone else's fault instead of the community's fault. And I think that's the biggest motive driving this racial justice, racial narrative. Everything's racist. This is the core cause of that, because it has somewhat become a hustle. It is kind of like a reverse slavery. Yes, it's not slavery per se. It's a learned helplessness, right? The black people were taught that because of their skin color, they can do nothing about their own personal decisions. Like, for instance, if I forgot what, this was a story in a classroom, a teacher or something. Teachers were scared to discipline black students because of an assumption that they'll be perceived as racist for holding the black student accountable, like she held white students, Asian students, Hispanic students, right? If you come late in class, what's the rule? Hey, you gotta go in detention. Hey, you might be suspended, but guess what? Guess which group of people get suspended more than other groups of people? Black people. Black people get suspended out of school more often than other groups of people. So a teacher sees this, it's like, no, I don't want to contribute to the racial disparity. And this is how black people get off, right? It's assumed that, oh, this is just black people's natural behavior. Instead of trying to force black people to change their behavior, we need to change our expectations for them. We need to change the standards for them. This is why they want to remove the bar exam to be a lawyer. This is why they want to remove the medical test so more black people can go into medical school, because they see that, oh, this is just how black people naturally are, taking a racist view, in my view, right? Do you think teaching CRT in classroom helps or molds that victim and helpless mindset? Yeah, to me, CRT is trash. CRT is garbage. That's one theory that my kids will never be exposed to, right? And it teaches this learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is pretty much someone conditions you to believe that you cannot have any effective change over your own situation solely because of your skin color, solely because of your race, your gender, whatever identity they want to tie into. This is why a part of me hates identity politics, is because people use identity politics to justify their lot in life, justify why they don't have the good outcomes compared to other people. When I say, hey, Asian people are 70% married, Asian people have a high ass income, they're a minority just like black people. How come they're doing so well in academia? How come they're doing so well economically in America if it's a white supremacy country? These black people come here and say, oh, it's because I'm black. You see where the alibi comes into play, right? It's not, oh, I don't want to study like them. I don't want to pick a major that's going to give me a high ass income. I want to keep having kids out of wedlock, which is known to show patterns of you increasing your likelihood to be in poverty compared to people who decides to marry first or be in a stable relationship first, then have kids. They don't want to do anything about changing their behavior. They don't want to take responsibility for themselves or how they got there. They just want to blame it on something, and their race is one way they can blame it. And then they use that self-blame. Okay, it's because I'm black. And then they'll use the fact that America is racist against black people. They're not racist against Asian people. That's why Asian people are allowed to succeed and black people aren't. You see how the game works? Learn helplessness. Always find a way to make me the victim. This is what CRT teaches black kids, or and specifically minority people. When in reality, it's your decisions. Like I said in the opening of my video, if you spend 8 hours learning how to read versus learning how to play basketball, if you go play basketball, would you be a good basketball player? No, you just spend all your time reading. You're not going to be a good basketball player. But if I put you in the classroom, you're going to excel in the classroom. And this is the trade-offs and the opportunity costs that it seems like the black community don't want to recognize. They just want to be like, hey, how come I don't have the same stuff as the Asian people? How come I don't have the same outcomes as the white people? You're not making the same decision as a community compared to the other people, right? How come people born in America don't succeed as well as people born in foreign countries that comes here and make the American dream come true? So, yeah, asked me a lot of questions. I'm supposed to be doing this video, but in my view, because I come from immigrant parents, right? I'm a first generation American, and it's the mentality, honestly, right? I think a lot of multi-generation Americans, and this is also my problem with African Americans as well, is that they've been here for generations on generations on generations, and they claim that, oh, white people have a generational advantage. They had generational wealth. And I come in as a first generation American, right? I was born here as my family's first American child. And I look at them, I say, okay, by that logic, wouldn't it mean that African Americans are supposed to be richer than Caribbean Americans? But that's not the case. Caribbean, if you look at black Caribbeans versus African Americans, Caribbean blacks have a higher net worth than African Americans. How is that? When we technically, from a family's point of view, Caribbean blacks has been here. African Americans has been here longer than Caribbean blacks. So how come Caribbean blacks on average have a higher income than African American blacks? And the only concept I can think of is because of the mindset and the worldview that Caribbeans and immigrants come here. When my mom was teaching me how to read and I was going to school, the expectation my parents have for me was different from how an African American parent have their expectations for their kids. African Americans seem to have more expectations for their kids to be athletes, rappers, whatever, than to be scientists, doctors, and lawyers, right? Maybe for black women, they have the expectation of being doctors, lawyers, whatever. But for black men, that wasn't the case. My parents, though, they treated me different. They're like, Kenny, you're either going to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I made good on one of those. Right. And that's how I have the life that I have now. Right. The immigrant is more likely to give pragmatic advice and have actual expectations. A funny story I like to do in between my videos is I like to bring up the concept of when I'm failing in class, when I come back home with a C, my parents, and then I can't go to my parents or I can't go to my mom and be like, oh, the teacher was systematically racist, mom. You know, the math test is racist, mom. I couldn't do it. My mom gonna be like, nah, I saw your butt spend all night watching TV, playing video games. You're not going to watch TV or play video games. You're going to sit there and study. That's what my mom would have told me. Because my mom wouldn't believe this racism shit. Oops, I'm sorry, I cursed. This racism-ish that African American parents are more susceptible to believe. My mom didn't believe that nonsense when she earlier on. She was like, "Nah, you didn't work hard enough. I saw your lazy butt sitting there watching TV, not studying, playing video games, and then you failed in this test, and now you want to go blame the teacher and you're trying to say the teacher is racist. That's why you failed in the test." My mom won't take it. My mom won't take that excuse. But let's say I was African American, I was saying that. Who's more likely to believe that excuse? Oh, we're gonna go to the teacher's office right now. Right? It's a mindset. It's perspective. If you look for racism, you're always gonna find racism. But hey, I've been chatting with the chat too much, guys. Let's get back into the video.
The reasons, whatever the reasons are, they're biased towards not pulling over black people. And that would be my guess that there's certain costs associated. There's certain, being accused of being a racist, potentially having, a situation where people are videotaping them and so forth. I don't really know all the reasons, but the evidence is very clear that they're biased against pulling over black drivers. Interestingly, that study also showed. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that study also showed that police give more citations and are more likely to search the cars of black and Hispanic drivers. Now, this suffers from exactly the same issue as police stops, right? It could be bias, or it could be purely a difference in violation rates. Police. The study itself showed that police are not biased, and it's actually a difference in violation rates when police pull over black drivers. But it could be the same thing for the stops and the violations. But our newspapers like the Boston Globe don't care. And the study actually said that, right? It said we found these differences in citation and search rates, but there's no evidence that it's due to bias. Essentially, the studies, the original Massachusetts study said that. And of course, like newspapers like the Boston Globe just report that it's evidence of this persistent bias.
So, in summary, in the daytime, when the cops are more likely to be able to see the driver, they're more likely to pull over white drivers than black drivers. At night, where they can't tell, they pull over more black drivers, which suggests that black drivers are violating the law more than white drivers are.
Which is true.
When the cop is essentially colorblind because of the nightfall. Mm-hmm. Now, you point out that black motorists violate traffic laws more. More likely to speed.
More likely to, like, if you look at the race of people who are convicted of reckless driving, a large proportion of those people are going to be black. Black people be overrepresented in reckless driving. In my own personal life, I've seen that. What happened to my two cousins? One cousin got into a car accident, her fault, reckless driving. Right? Another family member of mine, she was a victim of a car accident. The one who was at fault was another black person. Like, so in my own anecdotal evidence, I have two cases where I seen that happen. And also some of my friends, when I used to go to college, they used to drive very reckless. They used to be, if you ever seen black people swerve in traffic, they swerve in traffic. So there's a big case. Like, I see it with my own eyes when people say, "Oh, I'm being pulled over while I'm black." I'm like, yo, I seen how black people drive. And if I was a police officer, I would pull you over too. And that's just me being honest. Right? But it seemed like this is a game that has been playing. Jonathan Fields asks, do you think it's because privilege is invisible to those who have it? No, it's because it goes against the narrative, right? If black people recognize that in some cases they have privilege, it kind of destroys this illusion that they're an oppressed people in a way, right? They'll have to actually be honest about some of the outcomes that affects their people. And I think that's one reason why they don't want to acknowledge privilege, right? And privilege is not inherently a racial thing, right? For instance, you can say my kids have privilege, right? Stay-at-home mom, their dad works from home, homeschooled, right? I teach them how to, they're learning stuff at 2 years old. That's a big advantage. That's privilege. Because I'm in an economic position where their mom can be at home. I could be at home because I work a white collar job, right? They have full access to me, right? Because the average American, they only see their parents without accounting for food, toilet time, commuting to and from work and school. The average American parent only spends about 30 minutes with their kids. I spend well over that with my kids. That's a privilege. That's an advantage. Nothing I said there referenced my race, not one bit. And I think this is the problem we have with this racist narrative that we keep putting in America, is that all privilege is tied to someone's race instead of privilege being tied to ability, economic class, behavior, right? It seems like no one wants to recognize, hey, what's the more probable cause? Their race or their behavior? And my argument is their behavior at all. Most, I'll say 90% of the time, when you see a racial disparity, it's due to the racial group's behavior, not because of their race or not because of the interpretation of their race. And I think the only way y'all break this narrative is if you just bring up real data. Data don't prove a narrative. Data prove a result. Show me how that race played a part into this result happening. Why isn't it this? Why isn't it behavior? And I think if you can get people to try to argue that, they'll hit roadblocks because they start realizing, damn, it may not be race, it may be behavior. But I digress.
More likely to drive with a headlight out. More likely to drive without a seatbelt. More likely to drive with expired tag.
And when they pull you over for an expired tag, you're gonna say you pull me over because I'm driving black. Dumb. It's an alibi. It's just an excuse. You just want to use your race as an excuse for you doing a bad action, you breaking the law, you getting a negative outcome. You may not like the fact that the police pull you over, but the police don't pull you over for no reason. And the argument that the reason that the police pull you over is because you're black is an asinine one. Right? And today, human nature is human nature. Humans, we're good at something called pattern recognition. We recognize a pattern. Police recognize a pattern. They're saying, hey, when we tend to pull over people who don't fill out who have expired license plates, they also have warrants for their arrest for other cases as well. Right? When we pull over black people, black men specifically, they like to resist arrest. So I have to be very cautious around black men because I could lose my life with them. Right? The race that kills the most cops are black men. Sorry, not sorry. That's the fact. That's the truth. So so police officers, black or white, don't matter. If you're wearing a badge and you see you stopping a black man, you're a little more cautious with black men than you are with other groups of people because you've seen it. Oh, pattern recognition. These people are more likely to kill me, so I gotta be careful with him because I'm trying to get home to what? My family. Human nature, you ain't gonna stop it. If I told you to do a job and it required that you putting your life on the line every time you go out of that door in your house, you're gonna be like, no, I'm gonna return home. I don't care what I gotta do. I'm gonna return home. I'm not gonna give this person the benefit of the doubt, and it cost me my life. It makes no sense. But this is what black people want police to do because they think police are like robots or something. But I digress. Let's get back to the video. Are police racist? Let's get back to the video.
You name the offense. A black driver is more likely to commit the offense. And rather than say we got a problem with black drivers who imperil black passengers and other black safe drivers, the issue is systemic racism, imbalance, unfairness.
Yeah, exactly. So then this new study comes out, which is sort of amazing. It's actually not really a study. It's more of a policy report by this group called VERA. VERA is basically an anti-law enforcement activist group that partnered with the Suffolk District Attorney's Office in Massachusetts to produce this paper basically calling for police officers to stop enforcing traffic laws.
Wow.
Because they found that black drivers were violating those traffic laws more often, essentially.
So imagine this. Imagine the bigotry of low expectations here. So instead of saying, oh, there was no racial bias, we were wrong, police keep doing your thing, sorry about that, they go, no, please stop enforcing it. It's the same thing with suspension. This is what happens in public school. Hey, stop enforcing suspension because we found that black kids tend to disrupt class more often than other groups of kids. This is what's driving this disparity of outcome compared to other races. But instead of correcting the behavior or calling out the behavior and say, hey, black people, y'all need to stop driving reckless, and then y'all want to complain about racism. No, police, stop doing your job. Hey, lower the standards. Hey, stop enforcing the standards. How is this not racism? Imagine that. Imagine that we did this for white people. People will call it, oh, this is privilege. But black people don't want to recognize it as privilege. This is some craziness here. I can't stand stuff like this. This is the typical condescending liberal type stuff that's going on in our country. And people need to stop standing for this, bro. We need to start calling this out. Because until we start treating black people the same, they're always going to think they're different. How can you be an inclusive country if you treat people differently based on the color of their skin? Like, I don't understand this. I digress.
So yeah, it's just like amazing. And when you look at I don't want to jump ahead too much here, but when you look at the numbers of who's really hurt by this kind of thing, right? We've got black pedestrians are more than 3 times more likely to be killed in a hit and run accident than white pedestrians, right? Mm-hmm. So this is basically a direct result of the fact that there's more traffic violations in black neighborhoods, more people who are getting behind the wheel after their third or their fourth DUI offense, right? Even though their license has been revoked, more people who are getting behind the wheel after their license has been revoked for a hit and run accident, right? And then that's the result. So,
yeah, I mean these laws are there for a reason.
Yeah,
and the reason is to increase public safety, both for passengers and for drivers. I remember, Zach, some years ago, cops at the Turnpike in New Jersey were accused of pulling over black motorists more than white motorists. So the then governor ordered a study. Study came back. Same thing in the daytime. Often because of the sun hitting on the windshield, you can't tell who's the race of the people driving in the car. And at night, you couldn't tell at all.
And also, like, black people tend to tint their windows. Like, I don't know how it is for like other people in like colder states, but in Florida, it gets really hot here, and black people tend to over tint their windows, and that's also another reason like cops pull them over more likely too. They break the law because there's a certain degree, I forgot, a certain amount of tint that your car windows can have in every state. And black people are more likely to break that too. But then when they get pulled over by the cops, with their excuse, you pulling me over because I'm black. No accountability. This is what it is. It's people who don't want to be accountable for their actions, and they just want to use their race as an alibi. I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face because it's true. Every statistic they bring up about drivers, hey, you just break more laws. Instead of saying, hey, our bad, we're wrong about this. Okay, you have a point. Police ain't racist for pulling over black drivers more often than white drivers because black drivers violate more laws, so they tend to get pulled over more. No, instead of admitting they're wrong, they continue with their officers stop enforcing the law. Because what? They're trying to create a equitable outcome. That's the reality of racial justice. It's about creating equalizing outcomes when people are not equalizing the decisions. How can you equalize the outcome without equalizing the decisions? What you put in is what you're going to get out. If you keep breaking the laws, you're going to get pulled over more. You're going to go to jail more. So instead of having the black people, hey, black people, change your input so you can have a different output. No. We're going to change the criteria. We're not going to enforce the input. We're not going to give you the proper outcome or consequence for your decisions. We're going to give you a slap on the wrist. And what that do? Incentivize black people to break the law even more. They say, oh, okay, I can get away with murder now because of my skin color. Okay, I'm gonna drive even faster. I'm gonna be even more reckless because the minute they pull me over, hey man, then your state said you can't pull me over because I'm black. First they're gonna use their race as an alibi, and if people don't push back against themselves, eventually they're gonna use their race as a privilege. And it's already being used as a privilege. Look at affirmative action. I could be half as qualified as a white person, but because of my black skin, I will get the job before he does. And that also causes a racial prejudice. People going to look and say, oh, this guy don't know how to do his job, but he only got in because he was a black man. That's what's probably happening to black people in Yale right now. Everyone looking at that black student with suspicion, like, is he really here because of his merits or he's here because of his race? Essentially, you're creating more racism. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And then y'all going to pretend that y'all have the solution when in reality y'all caused the problem in the first place. This is why I don't take racial equality seriously, because it's not based on actual inequality. They don't want to address actual inequality, the inequality of input, the inequality of decisions. They just want to focus on the outcome, but they don't want to say, hey, how did we get this outcome? And then when they get studies that prove the outcome, why racial people have the certain outcomes they have, instead of creating incentives instead of creating support groups that will help these group of people make better decisions, they want you to lower the standards. That's the sad truth about racial justice.
And black drivers are pulled over more often because they were more likely to drive fast. And the faster the speed, the more likely it is that the driver was black. Well, she didn't like the study the governor did. Christy Todd Whitman threw it out, hired another group of people using a different methodology. Same result. Sorry. Now, aren't you concerned about the safety, that the peril to safety that black drivers are posing, as opposed to chastising these troopers for doing their jobs?
I mean, it's just really disturbing, and it's the same. It's the same pattern you see over and over again in all of these attempts, this movement to racialize all of our public policy. Right? It's the same issue that you see with, like you were pointing out, the Black Lives Matter movement, where we spread these lies about police hunting black people, and who is hurt? It's the black communities where we're depolicing as a result of these lies. We're reducing funding for policing, or making police so scared of actually confronting suspects that we have soaring violent crime and thousands of new murders. It's the same thing with affirmative action, where basically these institutions, which demand this really high level of preparedness from their students, specifically lower their students, just their standards, just to admit black students who are underprepared. Right? These are students, in a lot of cases, who are very promising students, but they just haven't received the same preparation as their peers in these institutions.
Essentially, affirmative action sets up black people to fail. And a lot of these people who advocate for affirmative action, they don't want to acknowledge that. They're going to be like, no, it doesn't do that. It does. You set up black people to fail even further. And then when they do fail, when they do drop out more, you're going to use the fact that, black people get drop out of college more than white people. Why is that? Because of the policy you put in. You lowered the standards. You put ill-prepared students for Yale because you wanted the Yale bragging rights. You want to show that you're racially diverse, when in reality you didn't deserve to be there in the first place. This is what happens when race trumps merit. Like we can't sit here and try to have meritocracy and then diversity and inclusion, because at the end of the day, it's two separate goals. It's two different goals. You ain't gonna have meritocracy. Meritocracy says, hey, these black people are bad drivers. They need to be better. Here's a support system. Here, we're going to train black people how to drive properly in the traffic, so that way they get pulled over less. You go to the source. You go to the source of the outcome. You don't sit here trying to make excuses for the outcome. And you saw it. They changed the standard, still found the same result. They changed the methodology, still found the same result. They don't want to accept reality. They want to create a reality. AKA, this is why you get this false narrative about the racist police. When in reality, the black people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror and say, damn, our community, we commit disproportional crimes, just like we're represented in the NBA, 74%. Imagine, 74% of the NBA black. How is only 13% of the population represents 74% of the NBA? How is that possible? That's not very representative. But no. The race hustlers, the racial justice people who wanted equality of outcome and opportunity, based on that logic, they're supposed to have a problem with the NBA being 74% black, but they don't. False narrative. Y'all don't really care about this stuff. Y'all have an agenda. Hey, the agenda is we want to bash white people. Hey, we want to put black people in positions that they don't really deserve to be in. We want to give black people, we want to lower the standards for black people, so that way we can prove to ourselves how virtuous we are as a liberal institution. Because, college is what? The ratio is 13-1, liberal to conservative ratio. So for every one conservative, there's 13 liberal professors in a college campus. And you see why the quality of education is going down. Why people like me are so anti-college right now, because I'm like, college doesn't teach you for a skill. It indoctrinates you. You're not going to get an education. You're going to get an indoctrination. You're going to get propaganda. You're not going to learn true things. You're not going to gain knowledge. You're going to learn a lot of things that are not true in college. That's the reality of college. And liberals want to get mad about that. They want to get mad about the conservatives movement of being skeptical of college. They want to get mad at conservatives when conservatives say college is a scam. Look at the results. End of the day, you can make all the narratives you want. You can make all the excuses you want. You can make all the rationalizations you want. But look at the outcomes. Look at the results. America's falling behind educationally compared to the rest of the world. Look at the outcomes that College doesn't even prepare their kids, for the children graduating from college, for the workforce. The workforce said we still have to train these kids. These kids are still ill prepared even after college. But instead of changing the system, what do college do? No. Let's make it worse. Oh no. Let's follow this theory that we can't prove or has no proof in reality. Or then when it does get checked in reality, they don't want to accept the results. When you test your theory in reality and reality show you your theory is wrong, you must accept that your theory is wrong. That's the scientific method. But these liberal institutions that they always brag about, oh, we trust the science. When data and facts come out and it goes against their perceived narrative or how they think the world should be, they don't want to accept it. But they want to call conservatives science deniers. Here, these are real data. Look it up. Black people are more likely for reckless driving. Black people commit more crimes disproportionately. Right? And if you believe in consequences for your actions, if you believe in accountability, if you do the crime, you must do the time. And if black people tend to do the crime, then black people tend to do the time. Simple. But because it hurts people's fifis, you're not allowed to say this out loud in public. Baffling to me. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back into the video.
And then they go on to do much worse, become demoralized, drop out.
When Obama, I was going to say,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Right. When Obama was in office, the National Institutes of Justice, which is the research arm of the DOJ, did a study on race and traffic stops. Same conclusion that your article talks about, yeah, as to Massachusetts. Black motorists were more likely to violate the law. You name what it was, whether it was speeding, whether it was driving while intoxicated, whether it was driving without a child safety seat in the back, without a seatbelt, you name it. A black motorist was more likely to commit the offense than a white motorist. And the NIJ said that the reason for the excess stoppages of blacks was because of legitimate factors. The story came out, virtually no newspaper published it because it did not fit the script.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
it's a fake narrative, right? It's a grift. If you're saying the police is racist, it's a grift. Where's your facts? Where's your evidence for that? Oh, all the people they tend to pull over is black? Okay, why they got pulled over? Could it be that they got pulled over because they actually committed crimes or not? Is there a law in place on the books where they say, hey, if you see a black man driving, you can pull him, you can send him to jail? Is there a law like that? Oh, okay. Then you can't say it's racism that these people get pulled over at a disproportional rate. Like, you can literally go to, it doesn't matter what math test. And I already told you about the academic gap, the academic skill gap. Black parents do not prepare their kids for academics, right? I'm sorry, most black households, aka most black kids, are raised by single moms. That means they don't have parental supervision at most times in the house. There's no one there to enforce them to study, to do their homework, right? To prepare them for school, to help them with schoolwork. Lack of parenting. Parental neglection is the primary reason for why the black community is falling behind academically. But we don't want to place the blame on black people. We'll be victim shaming is what the mainstream media will tell you. We're shaming black parents because they had to make ends meet. Well, they made a lot of decisions before they got to the point where they had the child. And you have to recognize the trade-off, the situation you're in. Hey, a single parent household is not the best place for my child to be. I can't help that fact. Okay, let me make some kind of concessions to mitigate that risk. Oh, let me put my kid with some family members so that way he's not by himself at the house. Hey, Johnny, instead of going home, go to your aunt's house. At least she can watch you and make sure you do your homework. Like, we don't think as a community like long term. What's the best interest of the child? The black community seems to be very more self-centered. Hey, what's the best interest of me? Oh, I know I can't watch this kid every day, but I want child support, so I'm gonna fight for primary custody. There's a lot of black women who do that. The child support hustle, the welfare queens. Black women hate hearing that word, but that's true. You see it on TikTok. Black women bragging about how they got the government to pay their rent. Oh, look, I pay only $50 in rent. Thank you, daddy government. They're teaching you how to hustle the system. Oh, you could instead of getting child support for one dude, you can have 3 kids by 3 different men and get child support $600 each from them instead of getting 3 kids by one dude and you only get $250 because you're dividing up his income. But if you get 3 different sources of income, pretty much equating having children out of wedlock to income streams. That's the welfare queen hustle. Right? And no one can say that I'm not from the hood. I seen it firsthand. I hear the hustle firsthand. This is why black women tend to get pregnant at an earlier age compared to other groups of races of people, because this is taught as a hustle by their own single mom. But if I call it out, oh, Kenny, that's not fair. You don't understand the circumstances. I may not understand the circumstances, but I understand the result. I understand the incentive. I understand the path that you're pushing. I understand the culture telling you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Right? And then when you blame black culture is the reason why a lot of young people are incentivized to make bad decisions. Y'all want to get mad at me. Y'all want to get mad at black conservatives for pointing it out. Instead of seeing this and like, hey, he's helping black culture become better. We need to address this issue. No. You don't want to admit any wrongdoing. That's the problem. We're a prideful people, and the pride will go before the fall. And until we recognize this behavior and change it, we're always going to get the same. And insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. If you don't change the culture, how do you expect the black community to improve its economic position when the culture currently is incentivizing black people to make bad decisions that giving them bad outcomes? How, Sway? And my black conservative buzz is just saying, hey, we need to fix some parts of our culture. Hey, let's stop making single motherhood cool. How about that? Because what a society condones, it enables. If society starts shaming single motherhood again, you think there's going to be more single mothers or less single mothers? We all know the answer. It's going to be less single mothers. Right? If we made it this is my argument for why we should bring shame back a little bit. If you're a dude who don't take care of his kids, hey, we got to shame you, bruh. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, you should have thought about that before you got this girl pregnant, before you got involved with this woman. And then shame for the women. Oh, you should have thought about his quality as a father before you went around being fast and having your girls' night out, sleeping with 8 dudes in a week because it was spring break. We need to bring shame back, because shame helps nudge the younger generation to make decisions that will be better for them in the long term. That's the purpose of shame. So I don't want to hear no one, oh, Kenny, you're shaming black people. I don't care. Shame is used in a productive way to nudge the younger generation to do decision making that in the long term will benefit the whole community as a whole. That's the point of shame. Shame is used to bring society in line, right? Because what you praise is what you incentivize. If you're proud to be a single mom and you see all these TikTokers who brag about being single moms or whatever, that's the culture. You putting out a system where you're saying, hey, it's okay to be like this. And if young people say, oh, it's okay, then I'll feel comfortable making the decision. But with shame, if you're ashamed for being a single mother, you'll be uncomfortable making that decision. And uncomfort what? Nudges people away from it. It moves people away from that bad choice. And that's the argument I'm trying to bring about. Right? That shame needs to come back in our culture, not just for black community, but for America. Because our culture is decaying at a breakneck speed. And then y'all want to get mad at the red pill guys for taking advantage of y'all fast women. Oh, they teaching men to have sleep around. Myron Gaines says you have to sleep with 50 women or else before you get married. Well, if women weren't out here sleeping around, Myron can't even give that advice. It'll be impractical to give that advice. But guess what? If there's women that's able to that out here sleeping around with men, it's possible for men to do that. It's like the chicken before the egg. What came first? It don't matter. Here's your part into how you decaying the culture. Here's how they're playing their part in decaying the culture. It's not either or, it's both. But one is to blame more than the other. And last time I checked, women gets to decide who is born, who gets to have kids or who don't get to have kids. That's the last time I checked. Maybe my biology is off. Now recently, they say men can be women now. Maybe my biology is off, but last time I checked, women decide who has kids or who don't have kids. Right? I think there's a stat historically only 40% of men reproduce in any given generation. Imagine that. So that means majority of women gets to reproduce and only 40% of men get to reproduce. So it sounds like women, hey, y'all need to take your ownership of the decay in the culture, because The reason why the Bible, and I believe the Bible when it says that the women are the weaker sex, is not because they're mentally weak, it's because they're more susceptible to emotional manipulation. I believe women are the most manipulated group of people in America, in the world, because it's easy to manipulate y'all. Y'all are very impulsive in some cases. And that impulsiveness led the black community to be where it is today. You see black women, come on. Black women, I think there was other studies, but black women are seen as sex objects. They're sexualized at a younger age, maybe because, they come from a single parent household, so their mom is not around to protect them. Black women are more likely to be sexually assaulted at a young age. Why? Single parent household, right? I'm being honest. This is the reality. But instead of recognizing all the drawbacks and all the failings in our own culture and saying, hey, we need to address it and we need to fix it, we don't want to hear none of that. We just want to be comfortable doing what we're doing. And then y'all expect the successful black people to come in and clean up the mess instead of rising to where the successful people are at. I'm done lecturing and ranting right now. Let's get back into the video.
What I'm trying to figure out is how do I break these things out of the, I'm sure you've been trying to figure this out for, decades now, but how do you break this out of the red bubble? Like, my story has been covered extensively in conservative media, right? But it's completely not covered. Oh. Sorry, my son just came in. Just
tell him I said hi. Tell him I said hi.
You heard.
But it's completely not covered in the blue media. There's like two completely different universes, and it seems impossible to actually get this alternative reality, to get truth into this alternative reality that so many people are living in, and it's just become it becomes demoralizing. But I'm just.
I want to talk about his demoralizing point about the culture. Because it seems like, I agree with his synopsis, and it seems like we live in a parallel universe in a way. Sorry, guys, I feel like I'm about to burp, so that's why my voice sounds that way. And it seems like we have the parallel economy. I at this point, I'm gonna start feeling like we're gonna be in a parallel jurisdiction soon too. We're gonna have one side of the country, they have one vision of America. Another side of the country, they have another vision of America. And I'm not gonna say civil war, but national divorce. And I already made this argument. The more, the closer millennials become to getting the seats of power, the more partisan I think the society will become. I think a national divorce will be possible in my lifetime. It may not happen in 10 years, maybe not even in 20 years. But I believe 30, maybe 40 years from now, a national divorce may be possible in America. Just like the UK broke its agreement or broke its alliance with the European Union, I could see the United States of America breaking upon political lines as well. It's because we just have two different views of the world, too much differences between how to solve these problems. And there's no middle ground or no unified stance that we all agree on. There's Pew Research studies showing that most Americans don't agree on basic facts. Majority of Americans do not agree on basic facts. Imagine that. Is that a good foundation for a unified country or a divided one? Right? And I think the only way we could blend this divide is having discussions, having these like, instead of me talking and speaking to the choir, right? Speaking with someone who don't agree with me, who think racial justice is important, racial equality is important. But who's more like, I'm willing to have that conversation? Who is the other side willing to have that conversation? No, it's not, because they don't care about the truth, because they know the truth is not on their side. And when you know the truth is not on your side, what would you do? Lie and create narratives. What would a man do for his ideals if not lie? That's the truth. This is why idealism has to be balanced out with realism, right? And realism needs to strive for idealism, right? Because idealism is the goal. Even if you fall short of the ideal, the fact that is you trying to realistically as possible try to make society as close to the ideal as possible. But when you think solely of how things ought to be, you end up becoming in a delusion, right? You end up being off of reality, not recognizing reality. And that's what's going on here. The racial justice crowd don't want to recognize the reality is that people, the reason for racial disparities, racial outcomes, disproportional outcomes based on race is because people make different decisions based on race. That's the facts, right? And any advantage or any privilege you try to tie into someone because of their skin color, I can also tie it to their behavior, how they carry themselves, how they make their decisions, how they set up their future generations for success, right? Because when my kid out here, my two biracial kids come out here and they're just as smart they're competing with the Asians, you're going to be like, how are they competing with the Asians? Oh, well, my dad makes sure I do my homework. My dad reads to me. My dad talks to me. My dad educates me. We talk about philosophical things. He talk about how we suffer more from imagination than from reality. My dad makes sure he teaches me the reality of things, not making sure I'm not being held back by an imaginary problem. Saying that you're not good at math because you're black is an imaginary problem, right? I'm just being honest. Knowing the difference between probability and possibility, opportunity cost. My dad taught me all that. You don't think my kids are gonna be like superstars if this is the mentality, if this is the intention behind me homeschooling my kid? I want to homeschool my kid because I want to give him an unfair advantage compared to other kids. This is what people from stable families do for their kids. This is why kids from two-parent households tend to be more economically successful, more academically successful. It's because of what I'm preaching right now, or what I'm saying right now, the mindset that I have right now. Right? And then, but people want to say single-parent households and married households are equal. That's a fallacy. That's blasphemy at this point. Married couples are less prone to poverty than single-parent households. Single parent households has a higher propensity for poverty. And poverty equals what? Lack of resources. So when these racial equalities come in, oh, black people commit more crime because of poverty. Well, your decision makings are a source of that too. Because if 70% of you guys weren't raised by single mothers, 70% of you guys wouldn't be in desperate poverty where you need government assistance. See, the root cause, personal responsibility, the root cause, personal decision making, individual decision making. That's the real cause of all this racial disparities. But no one wants to listen. Black community don't want to listen because the black community don't want to hear it. They want to be comfortable. They want to hear the comforting lies that it's America's fault that they're in this position. It's because America's racism is what is not allowing black people to succeed. That sounds more sweeter than hearing the harsh truth that it's their fault. It's their decision making that's leading to these bad outcomes, and that it's up to them to fix it and change it. Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Let's continue the video.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's any way to sneak in there.
What was that, Zach? The problem is the truth is not in their best interest. Their whole rationale, I don't know if you heard my segment before you came on, is all about systemic racism, about unfairness, and we, the left of the country, the Democratic Party, we wear the white hat. Those dastardly Republicans over there, they wear the black hat. I'll give you an example. I'm in California, which is a liberal state. About 25, 30 years ago, Californians passed something called Proposition 209 that forbade the use of race as a criteria in admissions into colleges and universities, in contracting, and in hiring. And they were told that, well, now that you've done this, the student body population that's black at the more competitive campuses, UC Berkeley, UCLA, was going to go down. And it did. However, the percentage that got into the lesser competitive campuses, UC Riverside, UC Irvine, went up. Overall, Zach, the graduation on time rates for these minority students, black and brown, went up.
Yeah.
Wow. They were matched at a better school.
Wow. Look.
So, fast.
Hey, evidence for the mismatch theory. Hey, you sending a lot of these black kids up to fail. Just because they're not graduating from Harvard doesn't mean they're not graduating from college. Right? And this is what it is. It's all about narrative. It's all about looking good instead of being good. The law was good. Hey, let's not discriminate against people based on their race. You got a good outcome. You got a better outcome, right? But it didn't make you look good. It'll make you look better if you say, oh, look at all these people graduating from Yale. Look at all these top universities with black people. We got more black people in these top universities. Even though it comes at the cost of a lot of them failing out of school as well. But they don't care. They care about the narrative.
So fast forward, there's a proposition called 16. To overturn 209. LA Times endorsed Proposition 16, opposed 209. They wanted race-based preferences back in. And again, this overwhelmingly left-wing state voted not to put race-based preferences back in. That said, a couple of years ago, there's a high school in California called Lowell High, Lowell. It's probably the best public high school in the state. They've always had an admissions exam. And as a result, the student body has been between 60 and 70% Asian American. Well, that's not diverse enough. The school board voted.
Yeah, see, this is my problem, right? Oh, 74% Asians. Even though Asians make up, I know California is a big Asian state, but still, they're still a minority. But they're overrepresented in this competitive public school that is known for academic excellence. But no one has that same energy for black people when it comes to the NBA. Oh, the NBA is not diverse enough. We need more diversity and we need more Asians. We need more Hispanics in there. No one's sitting here championing and campaigning for that. And this is how I know it's a false narrative. This is how I know they're not really about what they say. Right? But yeah, I digress. Let's continue with the video. I'm about to wrap this up pretty soon. I think I've been hammering my point home. So I want to give a few minutes left for this for the video, and then I'll wrap up with my final
lottery
thoughts.
System. Had it for the last 2 years. The percentage of students who got D's or F's went from 7% to 24%. They couldn't do the work. What's the point? All you've done is put students on a faster track and they can keep up. They're demoralized. They drop out. They're mad at the world. They believe that that systemic racism is a problem because but for that, they wouldn't have put me here and set me up for failure. So they're angry. It doesn't do anybody any good.
Exactly what we're doing in Boston. We just basically radically reduced the role of the exam in admission for our exam schools because black students were typically doing much worse because they were much worse prepared. So rather than address the underpreparedness of our black students, which would be addressing like the root causes of the lower proportion in exam schools, we're just lowering the standards so that we can admit lots of unprepared students. It's just like it's mind-boggling how
What sounds more anti-racist? Like what sounds more racist, right? Lowering the standards because you're black, or hey, it's your fault that you're failing this test. Here, we're going to support you so you can be better prepared for this test. What sounds more racist? Saying that you need to be better prepared because people of your race tend to fall behind because they're not set up for success, or lowering the standards because of your skin color. What sounds more racist? To me, it's B. Lowering the standards because of your race is racism. You're saying that you can't do it. If I sit here and say black people can't be engineers, y'all condemn me and say that's racist. Okay, I need that same energy for saying you need to lower the standards for black people because black people are too dumb to actually on their own merit succeed and pass these standards. That's what you're inadvertently saying, liberals, blue states, Democrats. But black people are comfortable accepting this message, accepting this level of helplessness. And this honestly pisses me off. But hey, I digress.
Like common sense some of this stuff is, and it also just like racist. It's like people have given up. They're like, well, we're never gonna prepare our black students properly for these schools, so the only thing that we can do is to lower the standards. I mean, that's just right. I mean, it's just amazing that they've and they'll call you racist if you point out if you point out the craziness of that idea. Yeah. But it's amazing how it's all flipped around. It's like Alice in Wonderland. It's everything.
We're in bizarro world.
But.
Well, they'll call you racist. They call me the black face of white supremacy. So count your blessings. Denzel Washington received an Oscar for Best Actor for a movie called Training Day. And it was based upon the real world situation out here in Los Angeles when the LAPD, because they wanted to diversify the police force, hired a whole bunch of people that they otherwise wouldn't have hired. These are people that had, quote, low-level criminal records. Mm-hmm. And many of them who got hired ended up involved in what's called the Ramparts scandal.
Damn.
It involved only 1% of the police department, but 1% of 7,000 can do a lot of damage.
Yep.
And many of them were basically drug dealers.
Imagine that. You lower the standards to have more black men admitted into the police force because hey, we need more of our people enforcing our communities. And what happened? They were more susceptible to corruption. They end up doing drug dealings with the drug dealers and using their positions of authority to facilitate drug crimes, aka which disproportionately hurt their own people because, like I said in the beginning of this video, A lot of crimes that black people commit, a lot of the victims of these black crimes are another black person, right? But instead of worrying about the black victims, we worried about the black criminal. Backwards. Our culture is backwards. Craziness. Jonathan Field says, Kenny, your breakdown of the black community, racism in America, and so much more is great. I love it. Keep it up. I appreciate the thought. CRS2894 says, yeah, bigotry of low expectations. It's true. All right. Imagine that. The bigotry of low expectations causes more problems for you. Oh, they did low rates crime, but we should make sure our police officer had no criminal record. They had no experience of breaking the law, right? No. Let's lower the standards. Let's do low rate crimes. And then the people that they put into place end up being the most corrupt police officers, and it caused the hugest scandal in the California Police Department. And you could have avoided all of this if you just followed what works instead of trying to bend the rules to get the outcome you're looking for. This is some craziness here, but I digress. Let's finish this. Let's wrap up this video.
And they would not have been hired in earlier years because they would not have been able to pass the test because they had a zero tolerance for people with drug offenses, even if it was just smoking marijuana.
Yeah, and then so I mean I haven't looked into as much how common these police tests are, but I mean that's one of the examples I mentioned in my article was how we've eliminated the test for police promotions because a lot of the black people who are up for promotions, black police officers up for promotions, performed worse on average than the white police officers. As if not knowing knowing the laws. Knowing the police procedures isn't important to doing your job as a police officer, or not important enough to actually, make the test. I mean, it's just it's just across the board we're being told, basically that the problem is that we have standards and accountability. That's the problem.
Right. Can't have that. Can't have that.
Sure, words have never been spoken, right? Expectations and consequences is the reality of all this racism, racial justice stuff, all because black people do not want to acknowledge the fact that they just commit and break more crimes. And they don't want to be held accountable for the fact that they break more crimes. And because it hurts their fee-fees to acknowledge that, they rather blame people outside of their race, blame people outside of themselves, outside of their own personal decision makings, just to mask and cover up their own shortcomings and failings as a community and as a culture. Craziness.
Zach, let's leave it like this. Let's apply the same formula to the NBA, where 75-80% of the players are black. That's not diverse enough. It's not fair. We are not being sufficiently inclusive. And we ought to go to some sort of lottery system so that we can make sure we have more white players and Asian American players and Hispanic players to the exclusion of these black players who dominate the NBA. Obviously, there's something unfair going on here.
White players and Asian players who are much worse basketball players do really poorly, it will be because of racism.
Exactly.
Right.
Bro. See, to get the consistency of an idea, and then I'm done with the video. Larry, at the last few minutes, he talks about his story. Obviously, as always, I always put the end of the video, and I'll just give my final thoughts to wrap it all up. It's so funny, like how you test an idea to see if it's principled, if it's consistent, is that it's a two-way street. What I give is what I expect to get back. If I'm saying that, hey, representation is the most important thing in our society, then I have to go against all overrepresentation in our society. Hey, black people, you're only 30% of the population. You're overrepresented in the NBA. We need to get other people in there, right? You have to acknowledge that. But the fact that you don't want to acknowledge that, and you only want to use that viewpoint, that framework, when it's a majority white, majority male profession, because your preferred group is not in there, what are you sacrificing in cost? Because you need to understand the concept of opportunity cost. What are you sacrificing in the name of representation, quality, meritocracy, right? Excellence. Because eventually, you putting all these people, there's a reason why in a purely meritocratic standard, there's disproportional outcomes happen for a reason, because these groups are disproportionately not at that ability, right? White players don't make it in the NBA at a high rate because they're lazy, right? Because when I talk about how black people are not competitive academically, people will say that you're saying that white people are inherently better than black people. I say I'm not saying that. I'm saying that black people are just not competitive enough to compete at a meritocratic way. And the only way that's going to happen is if they invest in themselves, they support themselves, and they improve the skills that they obtain academically to better compete with the dominant group, right? Just like in basketball, white players are not going to get in the NBA until their skill level and their ability are at the same standard as the black people that are playing in the NBA. But if I inadvertently put white people, Asian players in there because of the color of their skin, what I'm going to do to the NBA? I'm going to lower the quality of basketball because I'm admitting people who are on average subpar compared to the dominant majority in that sport. And black people will throw a fit. But when we do that for a majority white, majority male professions, we tolerate the level of inefficiency. This is why when layoffs happen, when recession happen, when hard times happen, this is why women and minorities tend to get laid off more than non-white than white people. Because on average, when they look, because when I've been in corporate America for a long time, they look at your performance reviews and they go, okay, he's an asset. He's an asset. We might have to let this one go. Meritocracy, right? And it gives black people, the minorities, a false sense of security. And that sets you up for failure. I'm sorry. You're causing more disproportional outcomes. But hey, that's my closing thoughts. I'll go into the chat a little bit, maybe talk with you guys for like about 5-10 minutes, and then I'll end off the live stream. So CR2894, sorry if I miss a letter or a word. Love the videos. I'm a big Larry Elder fan and never saw this. Thank you. Jonathan Field says, hey, Kenny, will you do another book recommendation anytime soon? I love your first one, and it was great. This is from Jonathan Fields. Yeah, Jonathan Fields. I'm gonna do more book recommendations. If that's what you guys want, I'll probably do more. It's just I could do ones that I read already, like maybe for like because I'm a big self-help productivity guy. So maybe my next book recommendation will be about self-help and productivity. CRS 2894 says need to be based on merit. I totally agree. Yeah, my biggest, like, for the stream, this is a book I highly recommend. Right, she has a lot of stats, a lot of facts, so you can debunk a lot of this false narrative stuff. Like Heather did a good job with this one, and she talks about how the racial diversity stuff is destroying art and science because they're lowering the admission rates for black medical students. She breaks down news stories where black medical students or they lower the standards and black medical students are participating in Black Lives Matter riots, doing podcasting, and not spending that time learning medical stuff. And then when they come out of medical school with subpar skills compared to their peers, they're going to get mad that they're being racially discriminated against as doctors because people are questioning their skills because they're a black doctor, right? And this is the unintended consequences of racializing all outcomes with your representation, right? So Jonathan Field says, I haven't heard of Larry Elder until watching Kenny. He seems like a smart fellow. Yeah, Larry Elder is actually, I think he's running for president of the United States in 2024. It's not likely he's going to win. He doesn't have enough clout. But, I mean, Larry's been open about the fact that he's only joining the race because he feels like the GOP is not talking about the issues that actually affects American culture, which is fatherlessness. I think that's one of his biggest push that he's trying to get addressed by the Republican Party. So he's running in the race to get those issues put in. So yeah, check out Larry Elder. Larry Elder is actually one of the people that kind of exposed me to conservatism a lot more. Right. I think Larry Elder is the only reason. Larry Elder is the reason I found out about Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams. So I agree with I think I look up to Larry Elder. Larry Elder is the reason why I even decided to do this too, in a way, because he had his talk show host. He was talking about things that I saw in the community. Like as a kid, I observed some of the stuff that was going on in my community, and Larry Elder was just adequately putting it out. And I was like, oh, I'm not crazy. I think what made me found Larry Elder was when Dave Rubin had that interview with him. And that was like my first exposure to someone just with facts and evidence, debunking all the liberal talking points. And I was like, oh my God, I got to listen to this guy more. So if I expose Larry Elder to more people, I feel like I did my job. CR says, I'm 5'7". I need representation in the NBA. Yeah, exactly. right? If you're saying standards are racist, standards are ageist, standards are heightist, then you have to put all diversity in everywhere. Like, you can't just do it. You can't pick and choose when you want to apply your principles. Your principles must apply in all circumstances, right? That's or you're just being a hypocrite, or you're just you're playing a game that's not really genuine. I don't think you're being genuine if you're picking and choosing when you want your standards to apply. Jonathan Field says merit matters, race doesn't. And then y'all guys were laughing in the stream. Larry almost beat out Newsom here in California. I was praying hard. I'll definitely have to check out Larry Elder, says Jonathan Fields. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys for watching the stream. It was nice talking to you guys. I finished the stream under 2 hours, so I'm doing really good with time lately. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the video if you're watching this on the replay. Let me hear your thoughts on the replay as well. If you guys are watching this on a replay, I want to hear your comments, your thoughts, your concerns, maybe some recommendations on future live streams, or if you want me to check out a certain person's videos or whatever, I'll probably give them a look over. Let me know in the comment section. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you all for watching. I hope you guys have a blessed weekend. Hope you guys have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next one. And peace. So I'm gonna end the live stream now. All right, guys, have fun. Appreciate you. Sub bro, have a good day. Thank you. Appreciate it. By their logic, we should have blind air traffic controllers. That'll cause a disaster. All right, guys. I can sit here and talk to you guys all day, but I have to leave soon. So peace.